I am resident of Collinwood for YouTube, Joel Saints, joined by Susie. How the heck are you?
I'm good. I'm excited to talk about this timeline with you.
We're here to discuss 1795. It's the most terrifying journey any governess would go on, and especially Victoria Winters, because she has the worst luck of anybody. And sometimes, it's not good. But so this is really interesting. I have a question to start off for you. Where does 1795 truly start for you?
As far as when does it start like getting good?
Well, the story, the actual, like in your for your viewing, because everybody's viewership is different of 1795, in my opinion. So where does 1795, the story, where does it start for you?
It starts right away, right at I think it was the third or fourth episode when Angelique arrives
Yeah.
to the old house. I think that's when it started for me.
Well, here's a bonus question. Like, do you think like prior to 1795 they're sort of hinting they're going back?
I didn't catch that. I really didn't. And I watched some of I usually go back and I watch just random episodes, and I never got that. And when I watched it the very first time around, I was pretty surprised that they did that. I had no idea that they were going to go back. And then when I saw like a handful of episodes, I thought, well, maybe it's just like how it is with other shows that I've watched in the past, like Walking Dead and whatnot, where it would be just a few episodes and then they go back, but it just kept going and going and going, and the story kept evolving, and a lot of things were explained, which I was happy about. But yeah, it started right away for me, I think.
Yeah. For me, like, I know they don't technically start 1795 until they go back.
Yeah.
But when they sort of start down the road, to me, the decision gets made when they decide to kill Dave Woodard. Because here's Dave Woodard. He's going to expose Barnabas. I mean, he's Peter Turgeon's going to get killed. No, but he discovers like Julia's notebook. He takes it back to his office. I mean, it's only a matter of time before he gets 86 to bat.
Yeah.
but when they kill him, because we all know, all Stark Shadows fans know, their initial plan was to kill Barnabas off, and I gotta believe. Now they said the sheriff would find out. I'm sort of wondering, and the sheriff would kill Julia and stuff. I'm sort of wondering if this was initially how the sheriff found out was through Dave Woodard. Now that's something I'm not sure of, but I'll have to ask Patrick tomorrow. Maybe he'll know. I'm sure he's the man. Yeah. If you need an answer, I'm sure Patrick has it. But it's really interesting to me because once they kill him, and I love how they do it too, because they don't have Julia do it. Barnabas takes the needle and kills Dave Woodard. I think if they would have had Julia kill Dave Woodard, there would have been no sympathy for the character. But they play it real smart, and they don't have her kill him. They have Barnabas do it, which made sense. Barnabas taking a needle and boom, and Julia just like, nah, I didn't sign up for like killing an innocent person. Like, and some people might point to Willie. Here's the thing: Willie was a thief. It's okay if you try to kill him, but though she doesn't end up killing him because somebody walks in. But it's really interesting that when they killed Dave Woodard, I felt that's where they sort of made the decision. Okay, we're going back in time. Because you're clearly not killing off the character Barnabas if you're killing Dave Woodard. I think that one of my favorite episodes, though, too, prior to the seance, was 361. and it's after Dave Woodard's death, and Julia is not happy with Barnabas. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt.
What?
I still have no connection on my phone.
Give me 1 second. I'm sorry. My daughter's. You have no connection on your phone. That's not what I want. What am I looking for? No, no. I don't know why you have no connection on your phone. I'm sorry, you have no connection.
Shout really loud.
Don't shout,
So
okay?
the connection will hear you.
Don't shout, okay? We're recording. Thank you. I'm sorry, but
Okay.
no, there's an episode where Julia is in the mausoleum, and at first there's a woman sobbing, which you could say is either Naomi or Josette. But then right after that, there's a wicked woman laughing, and to me, I know it's not Laura Parker's laugh that we're going to come to know and love, but that to me is Angelique laughing. That's your first real hint. Like, because when you go back and first watch it, like if you were to watch Dark Shadows for the first time, you didn't know who any of these characters were, and you'd watch from the beginning, and you hear that, it's like, okay, who's that? Like, what's going on? Why is there a woman laughing at these events? Because and it doesn't seem like they're just laughing at Julia. They seem like they're laughing at the events that have unfolded, really. And it's really like when I first watched it, it was like really strange and creepy. It's like my gathering was they're going to introduce a new character, and I was curious to see how. And then the same. Sorry, go ahead. Your turn. I'm sorry, I keep rambling.
No, I'm listening to what you're saying because that is a really good observation. I mean, I watched these episodes here and there. I watched them all the way through, and that didn't even occur to me at the time. So
Well,
no, that's really cool.
it's really interesting too because like to have to this is sort of what pushed it is what pushes Julia to want to conduct the seance is sort of that laughter and how Barnabas is treating her and how Carolyn is working for Barnabas clearly.
Yeah.
And she doesn't trust Carolyn. She doesn't trust Barnabas. So she suggests to Elizabeth, let's have the seance. And so Woodard's death really leads toward the seance because prior to that, they were trying to send David away. They sort of did briefly. They did send him away, but then he came back and he's talking to the one doctor, I forget his name. And at first Peter Turgeon, when he's looking at the portrait of Barnabas, he does this quote but then the doctor says, when Barnabas shows his fangs, and he wasn't being literal, but Turgeon, I love what Turgeon does here for his character. He takes it literal, and that's sort of where he figures it. Like, okay, now I get it. Like, you're a vampire. Like, they don't say vampire,
right?
Yet, but that's your hint that that's Turgeon's character sent Dave Woodard that Barnabas is a vampire. And with the seance, I love how they do the seance because you have Carolyn. Carolyn as a heel is interesting. What did you think of her as a heel?
I, you know, I felt kind of like she. I don't know. I felt obviously she's under the spell of Barnabas, and so I thought that there were times where I kind of thought that at any moment she was going to kind of crack. She seemed very nervous all the time.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, and going back to what you were saying about about Julia wanting to do that seance, if I remember correctly, Roger was thinking when they brought it up about let's have the seance, Roger was like, this is nonsense. I don't like seances. And then when he found out that Julia was the one that, had brought it up, then that kind of convinced him to go ahead and go with it and to have it. And so yeah, that seance was one of my favorites.
I think what sort of, it's funny how Roger takes that stance when it's his son, because it's curious when they did the seance when Barnabas threw the costume party, like way prior.
Oh, yeah.
like, like Roger afterwards was having like a good time about it. He's like, "Oh, people be like, like, wait, come back. That was funny."
What it was, yeah.
Like
he was totally into it.
I like how he tells he's like shh. He's like shh. You know, during this seance, he tells Carolyn shh shh. Like he shushes his niece. Like we need Lewis Edmonds just to shush people in the middle. I love this. Like give me more of that because that's gold.
It is.
You know, it's sort of funny, but it's sort of like it's supposed to be like a serious moment, but it's sort of funny at the same time because it's like he's right.
Yeah.
Be quiet. That woman's going into a trance. It's okay if her body starts convulsing or anything else. Just let her go. It's funny. There's a line at the way back in the beginning where Victoria Winters says she fears something's going to happen to her during a seance. Now we've seen ghosts have gone into her. The ghost of Josette, the ghost of Sarah is going to go into her at this seance. Did you suspect they're taking Victoria Winters back to 17? Well, I know they did the promo, but without seeing the promo, did you suspect they were taking her back in time?
No, I didn't. I mean, when I watched them the first time around, I really had no idea. And so when they were going to get ready to do the seance, at that point, I believe that I thought that Barnabas's cover was going to be blown. I thought that Sarah would maybe possess one of them, and that it was going to come out, and that the cover would be blown. That's what I thought at that time. I had no idea that they were going to do what they did. It really, really was a shock. I was really surprised.
It's interesting too because a friend of mine had asked me, what's the biggest difference between certain ghosts and dark shadows? I said, well, Josette's more of a ghost. Like she literally floats in and out of stuff, and sometimes she'll just appear and disappear in front of you. You know, she'll be gone 1 minute there the next, or vice versa. But with Sarah, she literally looks like a physical being, but is a ghost. Like she looks like an actual person, rather than just a spectrum or a specter or a ghost or a ghoul, whatever you want to say.
Yeah.
So when I first watched this, I'm thinking, because we saw Sarah like confront Barnabas prior to the seance. Like when she comes in the old house and stuff. That's like before, when Barnabas is trying to choke the life out of Julia.
Oh, yeah. And she's asking him, like, why are you doing this? Yeah.
Like when he had the hands on the third, I'm thinking, man, you pushed him too far. Like instead of beating her with the cane like you did Willie, he's going straight for the murder plot. Like I'm gonna kill you here. I'm not gonna hit you with the cane. I'm just gonna kill you. It's great. Like it's like, wow, you're really gonna kill this woman here who tried to help you. It's like, oh wow.
Yeah. And you make a good point because instead of doing, like you said, bashing her with the cane, it was like more personal. He was so enraged. He wanted to like get rid of her with his own two hands.
Well, I think that's the thing too. He gets pushed a lot too with Sarah, and when Peter Turgeon says about it to him as Dave Woodard, like about his sister Sarah, but then he goes, "I'm sorry, your ancestor." But with Julia, she goes, "I saw your sister." She doesn't change it because she knows. This is after Woodard's death and stuff, and she does. She's not necessarily doing it to agitate him, but it causes the agitation. And it's a great confrontation between ghost and vampire, between brother and sister, where you were sort of waiting for this moment. When it happens, it feels really good, right?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So during the seance, Carol, I love how Carolyn tries to fake Sarah being in her body. What did you think about that?
Yeah, that's right. She did. And I thought like, oh my gosh, she's really she's really kind of pulling at straws here. Just, she's desperate. She needs to do something to prevent, what I thought was going to happen, which, was Barnabas's cover being blown. Um, so she was really trying to do something, and yeah.
I think the most interesting reaction before the time travel is once Sarah goes in Victoria's body and people are starting to listen to her, and Carolyn's trying to like convince him that it's still her. Barnabas does this like no. And I think that's one of it. There are many humane moments in Barnabas's like pre 1795. Barnabas isn't a complete monster, but there's times he just is. But with it, like if he really wanted to stop this, there's nothing stopping him from killing everybody in that room.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
But he doesn't. It's just like I think there's a point of where Barnabas is like, okay, okay, let's see where this goes.
Right, exactly.
Which is it's great acting by Fred, but it's great writing. Like it's really great writing, and I was talking about this on Twitter, like because somebody said about the Adam arc where they don't say they don't say when Adam comes like, oh, it's alive, it's alive. No, they don't say it, but read the faces.
Yeah.
They're sort of saying it with their face. So when you don't hear Fred say anything as Barnabas to Carolyn, it's because he doesn't have to. He's just looking at her like, no, let it go. And once this starts happening, and then the lights go out, and then the lights come back on, and there's Phyllis Wick. It's like,
Yeah.
well, Vicky, you're in for no.
I know. Yeah. It was like, what happened? Where'd she go? I mean, it was, yeah.
When I first saw it, I'm like, who's the woman in the chair? that I did all this reading about Phyllis Wick, and I'm like, oh wow, wait, she gets what now, hun? Oh no,
Yeah.
because at that time, this it's not up in order. There was a site called www.darkshadows.com, which should be brought back, but it had the plot synopsis for 1795 and going and Phyllis Wick, who Phyllis Wick was. That's who I cheated the first time around because I wanted to know who the woman was sitting in the chair, and I learned it was Phyllis Wick. I'm like, and when I read she got home, I'm thinking, wait, Vicky took her place. I'm like, oh no, oh no.
Wow. Yeah.
Because my thought now is after, and I didn't read no more after that. When I read that, I'm thinking, is Vicky gonna get hung? I kept sitting there thinking, I'm in junior high, sitting there doing my work. I'm trying to concentrate, and all I could think about, they're gonna lynch Vicky. But it's really now when she comes back, she has the Collins family history book, and she's in her modern clothes, and she goes up to the old house, and who answers the door? But well, she doesn't know. He
Yes.
opens the door. It's Barnabas Collins in the daylight. What did you think of this?
I'm so glad you asked me. That was such a great moment for me to see him flesh and blood, alive and in the daylight. And, in those clothes, I thought, oh my gosh, this is really freaking cool. Um, and also going into the old house, one of the things that I noticed right away was it looked so bright, so like it was so pink, you know what I mean? And it looked so lively, and I really, really like that.
I think they did a really great job transcending, not just going back in time, but you touched upon it, the look of the house. Because
Yeah.
in the present day, to sort of give what Susie's talking about, the house looked gloom and doom.
Yeah.
It looked like a member of the undead was living there. Well, because he was. Um, but
Yeah.
but back in 1795, it's like all colorful and festive. It
Yeah.
it looks like a brand new house almost. It's
Yeah.
not, but it looks beautiful. And to see the old house, even like to have the old house have that sort of light, like was really nice to finally see.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. It's very beautiful. And here's Barnabas in his old cost, like 1795 get up, and he's like, she's like Barnabas, and she's like, who are you?
Yeah.
She's like, don't play games with me. I'm Victoria Winters. I've never met you. It's like it's beautiful. Like this, it would drive a sane person crazy because which she's right. She thinks it's the Barnabas from her time, and she's right. It is. Um, but he doesn't know her because you went back in time. You did not meet until the present day, the 1960s. This isn't 1960. I think that's the greatest thing about time travel, like not just Dark Shadows, but when you look at movies like Back to the Future,
Back to the Future.
someone's not gonna know who you are when you go back in time just because you know them in the present day. And it gave that like, and they play the Wizard of Oz thing like later on, which is cool. I don't think it's like when they do that. I don't think it's corny at all. I think it's very well done. Like with Mrs. Johnson's son Harry,
Oh
who I don't really think is Mrs. Johnson's son. I think is a spy. But
yeah.
sorry, sorry to at Mrs. Johnson on Twitter. I, all I'll say is I don't think Harry's her son. But but again, they do a really good job with that. But I love the fact that when they take Sarah being alive. What did you think of that?
Oh, that's yeah. I absolutely love that. And if I remember correctly, she also comes to the door, doesn't she? When
Yeah,
Victoria arrives, she comes to the door and she says, "Are you my new governess?" And so that that starts to kind of get her to fit, to fit into, or to get her foot into the door of the house.
yeah. She's wearing like a pink outfit, I believe. And then when they go in, she's like, "Here, I drew a picture of my governess." And she draws this dark haired woman, and a Victoria Winters has
Yeah.
dark hair. So it's like Barnabas is like, "Oh, your new governess, fine, step on it." And, and she's just, it's like she meets Naomi, who she mistakes for Elizabeth. She meets freaking Lieutenant
Nathan.
Nathan Forbes. Like Joe. He's like, what? No, what? And he's like, he gets hugged. He's like, hey, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You can go upstairs, but no. That's what his mind's on. It's like, hey, I, I'm free. I'm available, dude. It's like, which is,
Oh
cool.
yeah.
But she's like, she smacks him, which is Victoria Winter's ask. I mean, it's like, yeah, hey,
Yeah.
and then when they read the wedding invitations, year of our Lord 1795 for the wedding of Barnabas and Josette, she's not just in shock that it gets announced as that they're getting married, because she has the book. She knows what that book says, that Jeremiah and Josette get married. And when they say 1795, she faints. And what did you think of all that?
I thought that I mean, even without the book, which I mean, it has everything on there. Even without it, as soon as Barnabas arrives, I mean, he and during that masquerade ball where they do the séance, or not ball, but masquerade party.
Right.
He tells them, you know, a lot about the family history and how things, and you know what happened and who was with who, and all of that. And so even without the book, you know, Victoria was pretty already familiar with, you know, what had happened back then, and that, yeah, Josette never married Barnabas, but married his uncle. So yeah, so she knew.
Yeah, yeah, Susie's right. For those who've never caught this, there's a line where someone says about, Josette was always supposed to marry Jeremiah, and Barnabas says, "Oh, that's not true." And he says it, and like they're like, "Well, what do you mean?" And he just like shuts up and turns away. But
Yeah, yeah,
it's like, wait, what? Come back again? Like,
yeah. And there's a lot of scenes where he does that, where he'll say something, or he'll snap and say, you know, no, that, you know, that wasn't the way of it. And yeah, the family, Elizabeth and everybody is like, wow, you know, you seem to be really like invested in our family history.
yeah, and there's one too where it's thunder, and it's right. It's not too long after he comes out of his coffin, and he's in the great house. He's in the drawing room in the dark with Carolyn and Victoria, and he's telling the story of what Josette jumping off with us, so how her lover chased her, how Josette's lover chased her, and they say Jeremiah, but really it's Barnabas. It's Barnabas who chased her, and
Yeah, and that's, you know, I don't want to stray from what we're
no,
talking about, but I was really curious because I did go back and watch that episode where she had jumped from Widow's Hill. Do you think that she purposely jumped, or do you think it might have been an accident, or do you think Barnabas? I mean, because he was like really holding her, and I'm like, oh my God, I don't know if she jumped. I mean, I know she was frightened. I know why she was there, and I know she was under the spell of Angelique, like lured her, and gave her that vision, but I don't know. It didn't look like she jumped. It looked like she, you know, kind of, I don't know. It looked
this
like an accident.
this is why Josette's death on Widow's Hill is the most interesting, even more than the widows who jumped before her, because her death is shrouded in a literal mystery. And I don't think there's a wrong answer to this at all, because either she jumped because Angelique did have her under a spell.
Yeah.
Oh, you're right, absolutely. But Barnabas, because she showed Josette what she was going to become. It's sort of a call. Well, not sort of. It is a callback to what sort of Maggie saw in her dream when Barnabas was trying to make her Josette. But you have this girl who's running, and Barnabas is chasing her, and he's like, no, 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 and she just goes. Do I think it was an accident? I don't think what. Now, I want to be clear. I don't think what Angelique did was an accident,
Right.
and I don't think her actually going off Widow's Hill was an accident. I've talked about this with Dark Shadows. There's unforeseen characters like fate. I think no matter what happens, Josette was always meant to just die off Widow's Hill. And I can't say it's an accident. I don't think it's wrong to say that though, because I
Right.
could see and I could see what you're saying. Like she just like no, and then just goes off. But and maybe she didn't realize, because was in the state of mind she was in and the spell she's under, does Josette know for sure where she's actually at? Is she of sound mind? And I would say probably not. You know, she's probably not. I mean, she's been, because look at everything that's happened in 1795 when that happens. You know, she's lost, she was put under a spell to marry Jeremiah. Jeremiah dies in a duel by the hands of Barnabas. Well, really, with an assist from Angelique. Then, Barnabas dies. Josette thought Victoria Winters was the witch. Now you have Josette, who loves Barnabas, wants to marry him. Barnabas is a vampire, and she still loves him, but now Angelique has put her under this spell. Here's this woman that has gone through one thing after. It's interesting because I do admit I will focus on Victoria Winters a lot in 1795, but you can't discount, we're not, what Josette goes through. Because,
oh my God, absolutely.
Because she goes through a lot, and her death is fate to me, but her death is caused by, we'll say, unforeseen party. Well, Angelique was seen until Barnabas choked her and killed her, and then she's seen in the courthouse. But you hear her voice. I do think her death is on purpose, but could it have just been where she didn't know where she was at that moment, and wasn't it? Again, she's not of sound mind. That's one thing I would say. Did she just not know where she was standing and just went off because Barnabas screams, Josette, and, it's a great hypothesis, and I just don't think there's a wrong answer to it.
No, but you definitely make a good point because, I mean, if that is her fate, she's under the spell, she's going to go.
Right.
It doesn't matter if she's, looking over, or if she's falling this way or falling that way. It was inevitable that she was going to go over.
Right, because her changing history, that's the thing. Victoria Winters, what no one realizes, instead, she's not trying to hurt anybody. She's trying to prevent certain things from happening, bad things. So she looks at Josette's, here's this woman who, as a ghost, has saved her countless times. Well, at least one time. But has saved her nonetheless. So she feels she owes this woman who is pretty pissed at her. And she warns Josette, she warns Natalie, and it's just like, no matter how many warnings you give, there's no changing what's already sort of set in stone. Well, unless you're Barnabas in 1897. But I had to get that pun in there. With this, because here's the thing too. That's what's the beauty part about 1897 and 1795. 1897 is not an origin story. 1795 is not. It's Barnabas's origin story, no question. But once you get into an origin story, you got to get into the characters around Barnabas, and that includes Josette, Angelique, and everything else. So I think just her dying is her fate, and because she was, again, what not everything in the history book is a complete lie. And her death, though it doesn't say, she died by the hands of a witch. No, she just jumped off Widow's Hill because of Jeremiah, and it's like, well, that's not it's not nice. But I've always said Jeremiah sort of gets made to look like the scapegoat at times, even though they say he built Collinwood. We know Joshua built it, really. But it's interesting because Angelique Like when Angelique comes in the door, when Laura Parker first comes in the door, like I didn't go, well, that's the witch, or that's a bad person. No, I didn't know. And until like when you start watching, when you start like going along and watching it, it's like, oh, oh, okay. So there's something about her. And then oh, she's a witch. And you're like, okay, this woman's gonna be trouble.
Yeah.
What did you think of Angelique's arrival?
I, um, well, I was pretty surprised, first of all, that Barnabas had a lover.
Yeah,
um, yeah, that was kind of a surprise. And yeah, when she started to do all those things, like when she started doing the witchcraft stuff and getting Ben Stokes to help her, I was like, oh gosh, I didn't think it was going to go as far as it did.
yeah,
Um, I knew the I knew some of the origin of Barnabas, um, but I didn't know how the story was really going to unfold. So everything was brand new when I watched it. I didn't know what was going to happen.
right.
So I mean, so much so that during the duel between him and Jeremiah, I don't know if I noticed that Barnabas was wearing. I mean, I don't know. At that point, to me, he looked like a vampire already. He was wearing like this Count Dracula kind of costume. So I thought, oh, is this what's going to happen? And I'm like, is he going to die? And then is this like going to come back as a vampire? I had no idea. So everything was brand new, like I said.
No, that's a great point you're making because when you look at the duel of Jeremiah between him and Jeremiah, there's a scene between him and Angelique where Angelique gives him this medallion. Because here's the thing, Angelique knows, man, my lover can't shoot worth shit, but so she knows, like, man, she can't. She even like I can't talk you out of this. He's like, nah, and she's like, okay, okay, but she gives him this medallion, and that's sort of the thing too. Like now he is wearing the medallion. I think it's underneath his shirt or something. But what if he didn't? You're bringing up a great point because if he doesn't and he dies, I guarantee you, Angelique's gonna do something to keep him around. She's not just gonna let him die.
Exactly.
Like if she,
Exactly.
that could have been a way. Maybe they did talk about initially. Well, what if she curses him to keep him alive? But
Right.
he's undead. Like he needs blood to live and all that. I could have seen that. You know what I mean? It would have made sense. But do I love the fact that they dragged it out instead of
Yeah.
sure, because it made even for better television. But again, when you because that's the great thing. When I know I joke about Barnabas not being able to shoot, but he when you have that character flaw of not being a good shot with a gun, it can come back to haunt you. And now it does later on, but
Yeah.
it could have like you're saying, it could have happened sooner where they're at this duel. He instead of wearing a medallion, he goes, oh, I don't need this thing, because I could see Barnabas sort of doing that if he would have chose to. We know he doesn't, but what if he didn't and then gets shot? And like you're saying, that could have caused Angelique to go, I can't lose him, I can't lose him. So she casts this spell, not thinking of the consequence of it,
Right.
and then he comes back. It would have been interesting for sure. I think I sort of think the reason maybe they don't do that is because with the Phyllis Wick plot of Phyllis Wick going to the gallows, which is really I want to get your thoughts on this. We learn because, and I'm not trying to jump around. In the present day, when Victoria Winters comes back, Barnabas says something really interesting that Phyllis Wick, the reason Phyllis Wick knew Barnabas died, because the difference is she wasn't taken away until the night his coffin was taken to the mausoleum. And Vicky is taken away before Barnabas gets killed, before Barnabas gets bit by the vampire bat. So that's how she doesn't know. I think there's times where I think some people go, well, how did Vicky not know? Well, because Victoria was in jail. But somebody saying someone's dead, really, can you take somebody at their word all the time? No, you want it seen as believing. So she she kept, I think, really too, Victoria Winters kept thinking about the Barnabas in her time, because she doesn't know they're one and the same. She views it as, well, that Barnabas left for England, had a family.
Yeah.
She bought that story. And though we know better, you got to remember this character believes in that, because the one moral compass Victoria had most of all was she was honest, and she tried to see the good in others. Now, and she did. She tried to see the good in Barnabas okay, I believe Barnabas. I believe Barnabas in the present day, so therefore Barnabas in this time must have went to England. And so that's why she can't believe that, oh, he's dead. To her, it's like disbelief. So now, what did you think of the difference between Phyllis Wick's journey and Victoria Winter's journey?
Well, as far as Victoria's journey, like you mentioned, she had no. She was surprised to hear that he had died, because it's in the book that Barnabas went to England. It was not in the book that that he died, or by the plague. I mean, wasn't that did his father tell everybody that he went to England? That's right. So he so yeah, so her going, and then do you hear something?
What's that?
Do you hear something? It's like a buzzing.
Oh, that's my fan in the back. I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought it was my iPad. So yeah, so Victoria's journey is a lot more different, because she's she's come from the future,
Right.
and Phyllis Wick is in the present.
Yeah, I think that's the best thing too. That Barnabas' shock because he says, "What are you doing? Like, why are you here? What are you doing here?" And it's like he knows her, and he knows she knows what he is, or at least knows that she knows that he died. So there shouldn't be a Barnabas Collins. And I think that's, again, Phyllis Wick's journey is interesting, because it's not the same as Victoria Winters. Victoria Winters, when she gets literally taken away, and I do think the one thing with her getting taken away, she gets drove out the house by Angelique Spell. This is what exposes, Angelique. Now, I think the same thing with Phyllis. Now, do I think that happened with Phyllis Wick? Obviously, no. I think what happened with Phyllis Wick is, I'm sort of wondering if Angelique accused her of trying to kill Barnabas, and they just say, well, Barnabas fled to, like, maybe she tried to put a spell on Barnabas, and that's why Barnabas fled to England. And obviously we know better, but it's so weird, because we don't. Another difference is too Victoria Winters isn't from Boston. She's lying about that. So that's why the person who's going to be the judge in the case can't defend her. But to me, Phyllis Wick wouldn't have had that problem because she would have been. So I'm wondering, you know, you can't charge Phyllis Wick with being a time traveler that Victoria Winters is going to admit to in the trial, other than witchcraft. And I could see how they sort of somewhat got her, where maybe they said, "Oh, she caused the kids' death," and yada yada. Because I'd like to think that Sarah probably died the same night Barnabas did with Phyllis Wick. I think that's something that maybe is a tad different. I'm not so sure. Maybe not. Maybe
That's
she
really
did,
interesting.
you know.
Yeah, I would have never, I wouldn't have thought of that. That's really interesting.
I don't. I'm not. Again, I'm not sure. I'm not saying that did happen, but it's weird because when you have two different characters, and again, their arc shouldn't be the same because they're two different people. You sort of have to look at Phyllis Wick and question, okay, what exactly happened that she got taken in for witchcraft? We know what happened with Vicky. I don't think the same exact things happened because Barnabas sort of confirms they didn't when he says, well, she wasn't taken to jail until after my coffin was taken to. So I don't think Trask knew Barnabas got killed because, again, they covered that up. They said Barnabas went to England. The only people who knew were Joshua, Naomi, Josette, and I'm going by the Victoria Winters arc because I have to. But
yeah. And Natalie, right?
right, Natalie. So it's like, okay, here's this Barnabas died, and I think even Angelique was there, and because Josh was like, I don't care what you do, just get away from me. Like it's like good old Joshua. I was telling a friend of mine, I said Joshua doesn't just hate everybody, hate somebody. He hates everybody. He's an equal opportunity hater.
Yeah.
But
So he does, yeah.
it's like it's great because it's like, man, this dude's a dick and I love him for it. But it's like he's just like, I don't care what you do to Angela, like I don't care, just get out of it, like get out of here, girl. But
yeah.
you again, I'm sort of wondering with Phyllis, like what was there a way somehow they not included Barnabas's death, but blamed her for putting a spell on Barnabas, making him sick, and that's why they sent him to London. Maybe that was, I don't know. It's not written in the book, so I can't really take it for granted. I can't say it for sure it happened, but it would be sort of interesting to get actually Phyllis Wick's version of
Right.
of
Yeah.
1795. You know, because we have Vicky's, and again, it's not the same. I do think Abigail. Again, Abigail's another one. What did you think of her, Abigail?
Oh my God. I couldn't stand her. I just couldn't stand her. I mean, wow. She was one of the worst ones on that or in that arc.
She's the only person that would stand in front of Michael Myers and condemn him to hell while get ready to stab her. But she's, yeah, you're right. She's sort of a religious, well, not sort of. She's a religious nut, and it's like I love Lewis Edmonds' lines later on in Judge Joshua. She saw the devil everywhere. It's like, thank you. Like it's about damn time you said that.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, she saw the devil everywhere. It makes you think like, well, what did you think she saw when she looked at you?
Yeah.
It's like she really is just so obsessed. I mean, Trask feeds off of her very well.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
What did you think of Jerry Lacey's Reverend Trask?
Oh my gosh. He he's another one. I mean, when when I had watched him before as Tony Peterson, was it?
Yeah.
And, oh, I mean, I thought he was dreamy, and I liked his character, even though he was kind of mean at times. But I thought, oh, when he was first introduced, I was like, wow, who's he? Who's he? And then when he's introduced as Reverend Trask, I thought, oh my gosh, he is so awful. He is just so evil, and just relentless. And again, I don't want to stray from the story, but I had I mean, he was like, his character was one of the nightmares. And a few years ago, I had gone to a Dark Shadows festival, and I was walking around, and it was really lovely. I got to get some autographs and whatnot, and so as I was leaving, or as we were leaving, then all of a sudden there's like people kind of going, and I hear like this, little bit of commotion, and I look over, and it's Jerry Lacey, and he was, I was absolutely blown away by his presence. Everybody was watching him, and all of these people kind of surrounded him, and he was dressed so. I was like, wow, he's a beautiful man. I take back like what I thought about him being scary in those episodes, but what a great actor. But yeah, I couldn't stand him.
It's funny because when my wife sees Jonathan Fritz, she's like, God, he was a handsome man. I would have got with him. I was like, what? Like, what? Like, you're sitting next to me. You can at least wait till I leave the room. But it's funny. It's like, yeah, he's a good-looking dude, and that's the one thing too I find interesting. Angelique and Barnabas you touched upon this, having this relationship in Martinique. And when I first watched this, my wife, not first watched this, when I was watching this back with my wife, we had just got married and we were watching. I said, you got to watch this with me. And she's watching it and watching, and she sees Angelique and Barnabas interacting with each other for the first time. And she goes, you can tell they've had sex. I was like, what do you mean? She goes, oh, look at their body chemistry. Their body language is screaming it. And that's not the word she used. She's like, you can tell. She's like, you can tell they fucked. I'm like, what? I'm like, what? She goes, Barnabas and Angelique had sex. And I'm like, oh. And yeah, she's right. You could tell that. So in Martinique, Barnabas, when he was a young teenager, he saw this beautiful blonde woman, and hey, they got naked and rolled around in the sand together. But it's very, like, to think of that, like, because you don't really, that's the thing, you don't think about it, but then when you see them together, you keep thinking back to Martinique that we don't get to see, that they had this really romantic relationship of pure passion, that for Barnabas it was just like, he wanted her, and you could understand why, and why she wanted him, and she fell in love with him, because to her, hey, that was her man. But when he went away and then met Josette, it's like that fell apart. And the dynamic of 1795 with the love triangle, with the jealousy, is really interesting. It's one of the most unsung things of 1795.
Yeah, no, for sure.
You know?
And I think too, I mean, one of the things that I thought kind of set Angelique off was when there was a scene where Barnabas was talking to her, and he told her, like, we can't be together. And then he says something like, but we're still friends, right? And she's like, yes, friends. And I'm like, no, you don't tell your lover. I mean, we're just now going to be friends. And I'm like, oh God, it's no, this is where she's going to, all bets are off here.
It's right. Here's a woman you've had sex with. You're telling her, oh, can we just be friends? It's like, yeah, friends. Like, God, like, Friends, dude, really? Like after everything we've been through, friends, really? And
Exactly.
it's like
So yeah.
she 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 does a Laura Parker does a great job of being the jealous, ex-lover, and not showing those tears of emotion, but showing the rage.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, great facial expressions. I just feel the whole cast doesn't get enough credit for 1795, and especially her. She just really brings her character to life so well, and like you can tell, man, this woman is evil as hell.
Yeah, and there were some little like just little scenes where I thought, oh well, maybe she's not that bad. Um, for example, she when Barnabas tells her that Joshua is going to cut them off,
Yeah.
for getting married, and they're going to get nothing. And she says, I don't care. I just want to be with you. I don't care
Right.
about money. And I thought, oh, well, maybe there is some redeeming quality about her, and then, yeah, and then it goes out the window.
Because up until that point, it's like, well, only Jeremiah's died. It's no big deal. But no, but I do think you're right. You're right. It really, she didn't want money. This wasn't, Gordon really touched upon something, and shout out to him. For Joshua, the marriage was an investment. Josette and Barnabas' marriage was an investment. And I was touching upon this too. When you watch Joshua, he sees one marriage already lined up between Barnabas and Josette. Well, then he's looking. He goes to his brother. Oh, you should marry Millicent. You need to marry Millicent. Millicent, no. Millicent. It's like I love Jeremiah Collins because he's like, no, no, I'm not married. Millicent, no. Like he's literally trying to have a double wedding just for money, the sake of money and power. And it's like, dude, are you for real? Like,
Yeah.
you love him for it, but because Jeremiah's reaction is beautiful, it's like, no, no. But it's just like, wow, this dude really is about money, and Gordon touched upon that really well. And I do think that once he saw, well, his son's not going to marry Josette, and keep this.
Yeah.
He marries this woman who has no money, who's a servant. It's like to Joshua, it's like, okay, no, I'll cut you off right here, right now. I don't give a shit. Like, like it's like, damn, dude. It's like it was never about to happen this with you, was it, buddy? But
Exactly. And then, she kind of there was another scene where he tells her that he wants her to go away, right? And he's like, I'll give you, $10,000. And she's like,
yeah,
that's how much you offered me to go away, before. And he's like, how much do you want now? And they're kind of going back and forth, and they settle on just like a king's ransom at that point, right? It was like $40,000. I'm like, and now I'm thinking like, oh my god, this bitch, like really, it keeps getting worse and worse and worse with this one.
it's like at this point, it's like 40. It's like now she wants. Here's the thing, though, too. She wants the money because she knows I got to get out of Dodge. I got to
Yeah.
get the hell out of here. I got to stake Barnabas and leave. But like, okay, I've done enough damage here. But
Yeah.
it's but you're right. She really goes from not wanting the money because she really did want to be with she wanted to be with Barnabas, but then when she settles for this king's ransom, it's not. I don't think it's. Here's the thing. I don't think it's so much settling for a higher amount. I think it's just more just settling. I got to kill your son without you knowing.
Yeah.
It's like I'll take the money. It's like, but yeah, it doesn't happen for her. She gets choked out quicker
I
a,
know.
than a person in a
But
sleeper hole.
you
And
know, the thing too is I mean, she's so evil, but then
Yeah.
again, as a woman, I mean, gosh, they're married. He's still thinking about Josette. He goes as far as hanging the portrait up in the house, and she's like, when Abigail shows up and she says, "What is that?" and she says, "Oh yeah, he insisted on hanging that portrait up," and I'm like, I don't know, that would not sit well with me if my husband did something like that. She was really pushed to the brink. The frustrations and her spells not really working the way she wanted them to.
Right. It's just like it's just like, yeah, you can't get him to stop thinking about Josette. You got problems, girl. But
Yeah.
it's like, no, it's like I think too a hint of that it's going to go wrong is you see Jeremiah, zombie Jeremiah, if you will, or wraith Jeremiah, whatever you want to call him, sort of teasing her. So that sort of gives you a hint that it's not going to go well for Angelique, but it doesn't. I mean, he chokes her to death, but she's still around. I mean, you never get rid of Angelique, unless it's 1840. But it's what a arc. I mean, to me, this arc is just so well written. I love 1897 too, but 1795 just brings something about the, Angela. You get the Angela, you get Barnabas, you get the whole love triangle dynamic, and you do get the story of Vicky being in the past. And I think they do a great job of taking their top baby face at the time, Victoria, and turn a heel, well, technically a heel, Barnabas, babyface, and they use one to put the other one over, and it was beautifully done. And what did you think of Victoria's trial? You haven't touched upon that.
Oh, I thought it was so exciting. I remember, I mean, there was so much yelling back and forth and going back and forth, and you know you as the audience is watching, and the truth, and so you feel so bad for her, but then
Mm-hmm.
you also put yourself in the judges or whatever in their shoes and what they're hearing, and I don't blame them for thinking. I mean, it would be obvious to think that she is a witch, and especially hearing when she takes the stand, and how she talks about being born at this time. I mean, you either think she's insane or she's a witch. And when she talks about it, there was a scene where Reverend Trask, I the camera zooms in on him, and he's like, he's getting excited. He's fascinated with her story, because it's just making the case for him stronger for conviction,
Yeah,
because he knows, like, oh, this is real good. This is real good here.
yeah. Victoria more gets the noose around her neck more than he does.
Yeah.
And I mean, you sort of
Yeah.
expected that too, though, because I mean, if you, many others, I have watched it from the beginning. This character has been honest, and honesty is, she's going to be honest. I mean, there's moments where she does have to survive. There's things she has to do to survive, but it's not so much about her survival anymore. It's about her truth, and the
Yeah.
truth, you know, and she's gonna tell that. And I think she does a great job. I love Peter Bradford in this story too. I think um, Roger Davis does a really great job being her lawyer. Trials tend not to end well in Dark Shadows. They're like the weddings.
That's true.
Well, 1840 ended okay until Angelique got shot. But but other than that, like they take her to the gallows, they put the noose around her neck. I love how prior to that Roger Davis said, "Vicky, I'll find you. I'll find you through time." It's
Oh
like
yeah.
it's a great, like, because she falls in love with Peter, and Peter falls in love with her, and they kiss, which is great. It was great to see Victoria actually fall in love. really since Burke, and one of my favorite things in 1795 is when prior to her poison is when Naomi's death is really one of the most heartbreaking things, and it's
Oh,
interesting to
yeah.
watch where she finds out. Nathan tells her, "Oh, your son." He thinks he's the Collins portrayal. Well, he is, but he's a vampire. But he tells her, and she goes up and sees him. She tells him, "I love him." She drank poison. She dies. Naomi's death and Sarah's death too. Which for you is more heartbreaking?
Well, Sarah's death was heartbreaking in that, you know, she couldn't talk,
Yeah.
and, Ben carries her up, right before he finds her. And she hugs Barnabas and says, I'll always love you. And you're just like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But with Naomi, so much, I mean, I know this is gonna sound horrible, but I understand why she did what she did. I mean, not just, I mean, forget the tragedies that happened, but even before all of this took place, she talked about or complained about how unhappy she was with her life, and how why she drank so much. That Joshua was just not letting her do anything.
Yeah.
And then, you know, and then the death of Sarah and the death of her son and Josette and all of these things that happened. Like, I mean, it was a short amount of time. I,
Yeah.
I, I, I can understand why she came to the decision that she did, just with those facts alone.
Yeah. Yeah, you really can. And it's really interesting too. Nathan Forbes, he wasn't really bad until, you know, Angelique's Curse. When Angelique Curse burns, everybody you love will die. Really, if you watch him and Nathan's relationship, they're sort of like brothers almost at times. Him, like, so
Yeah.
are Jeremiah. So when he sort of turns heel, you sort of wonder, well, did Angelique's curse affect him too? I mean, don't get me wrong, he makes the decisions he's making, but it's sort of you're sort of wondering that during the arc. But I think there's moments too where it's like, okay, dude, you could clearly pull up from this heel move you're making, and so when he gets killed, it's like, yeah, you deserve that. You deserve.
I still have I had a little bit of a soft spot for him, just because he took food to Victoria. He never, he never believed that she was a witch.
Yeah.
And he didn't want to take back his testimony, but he was forced to do it. Trust forced him to do it. And even when he lied about being married, I mean, it's obvious that his marriage to Suki wasn't ideal, because she didn't show up at the Eagle saying, like, where have you been? I've missed you. I've been looking everywhere for you. She was more like, you know, so here you are, and where's my money?
Suki's death is funny to me. It's like, dude, this woman was lowballing you. It's like you should be happy she's dead. it's
I know. I thought, when Barnabas showed up at the old house, I was like, oh well, there goes Nathan's problems right there, gone.
I,
But
I,
Millicent finds out he's married anyway, right?
yeah. She goes up against Suki's things and finds out he's married. She gets mad, and that's another reason he testifies against Victoria too, is to get back in favor with the Collins family.
Yeah.
Trask, he'll put in a good word, which he does. I love Reverend Trask gets bricked up in the wall of the old house for art. What did you think?
you know, I was like, is this really how he's going to go out? I don't know. I thought that maybe I don't know, some power was going to like make it not be the case. But yeah, I was like, oh my god. And then didn't they later on find this remains in there
Yeah,
with
yeah. In the present, well, in the present,
yes.
they use his ghost, and in 1840. The 1840 arc, Lamar Trask finds his father's remains. It's really interesting. But fortunately, the Trask, their 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 uh their fate is like horrible too. But some of them just deserve it too. But it's crazy. It's like, man, it's like, dude, if you just turn around now and leave town, you will not you will most likely live for a long, long time. If you stay here, I can't. No one's guaranteeing shit.
Exactly, exactly. And there were so many scenes in this arc where Josette and Natalie were like, we're leaving Collinsport, and it's like, yes, leave. And then they left once, and then they came right back, and then we need to leave again, and it's like, yeah, go. And they didn't.
It's like leave, carriage, keep going, don't stop. It's like when you see the carriage, go into Collinsport. No, no, no. Anywhere but Collinsport right now. What year is this? 1795? You said no. I'm good, dude. But I think that's the thing too. Like, like the curses of the Collins, really, of the family itself. It didn't just affect them; it affected people around them. Not
Yeah.
not just family and friends, but people who really got involved with them, whether it be a Trask, whether it be a Forbes. It affected other people who came into their life, whether to do them harm or do them any good. I mean, look, the one lady who tries to help Barnabas with the curse that I almost said Roger, but Joshua brings. It's like she gets killed too.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just like you cannot help these people because you will be killed yourself.
Totally. And that was another question that I wanted to ask is, do you think that before all of this happens, that even the Collins before them, I mean, did they live like kind of normal lives? Were they happy until
Well, there's something to touched upon too about how when people came to America, they wanted the ways of the like the evil of the East. They left the evil of the Europe behind, right? The witchcraft and all that stuff. So when they saw it happening here, they just had people killed without even having them on trial, having fake trials and shit. That's what got it, that, and they wanted their land. That's sort of what the Salem witch trials are about. And so I think when it comes to the Collins, though, I think they were just always meant to be damned. And when you read certain stories, like you'll meet characters that are just like, no matter what, that character's life is going to be miserable as hell because they just have it like the worst fate, like the worst, whatever you want to say, luck, destiny, or whatever you want to call it. Here's a great example. I've talked about this with Halloween. Laurie Strode and like the men she dates. I mean, freaking Ben Tramer ends up like a piece of Kentucky Fried Chicken up against the van. But then the guy who doesn't date anybody in Halloween 4, I forget his name, Todd Hollister, he gets shot up by an angry mob, and it's like there are just people who have the worst luck when it comes to certain franchises. It's like, wow, that character. Oh, hey, this character is liked by Laurie Strode. He's gonna make it. Yeah, he's on fire. Never mind. That's how when I watch Halloween, that's how I treat it. It's like, oh, Ben Tramer is liked by Laurie Strode. Nothing can happen to him. No, yep, never mind. Yep. I'm sorry, Mr. Trainer. Can somebody get a hose? I'm on. I'm on. But is there anything you want to add before we go? I'm sorry.
I don't think so. I did want to ask if the portrait of Josette, I
Yes.
know that it was a gift from Josette's father, Andre. Did he paint that? I know that it doesn't matter, but I'm curious if he
Mm,
painted it.
I don't know. That's an interesting thing though too, because you sort of wonder that not because of Sam Evans or anything, but because he's the one who personally gifted it. So it's like, did he just commission? I think they. I do now. Don't quote me, anybody, but
Okay.
I think they say he had it commissioned. I think.
Okay.
I may be wrong on that, but I'm pretty. I'm 5% sure. Because it's hard to remember everything like that got said and done.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
I'm pretty sure he said he had it commissioned. Now I will say this: if he painted it, that would be like a great sentimental thing because it would make sense if he does, because hey, he's gifting it's his gift to them as a married
Right.
couple. So it's why not? But I think he had it commissioned. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure. I
Yeah, I knew you would be a good person to ask.
I again, I could be wrong.
No, you're probably right.
Don't bet the house on that. No, no. But it's I think that's the thing though too. There are many things in Dark Shadows that get presented to other people, whether Angelique giving Barnabas a medallion, Josette's father giving Barnabas a portrait of Josette that was his wedding present. It's like, here's a man who has who has lots and lots of money. His present to his son-in-law is a portrait of his daughter. It's like, really, dude? Like, really? That's what you give him? Yeah, okay. I already said like that's honestly it's fate, but it's irony because here's Barnabas who now has to look at that portrait for the rest of his life when he's a vampire and know what happened in 1795.
Yeah.
That's one of the most heartbreaking things too. It's like he has to look at that and go, God, it really went bad.
God, I know that's right. Yeah, because when he goes back into the house, I mean, the portrait still hangs.
Yep. Yeah.
So, oh, yeah, I just thought about that.
Yeah,
That's so sad.
it's in the drawing room. Then he puts it up in Josette's room. It's like, and then he keeps going into Josette's room. It's like he cannot stay away from Josette no matter what. Here's Angelique with these cards. Like, get a clue, get a clue. It ain't gonna happen. It ain't gonna. I was just God, Angelique is not gonna let him alone ever. And it's like she's literally one of the most professional ex stalkers you can have
Yeah.
for an ex, and it's beautiful.
Yeah. When her ghost appears, when her face, shows up in the mausoleum, I'm like, oh no. Why did I think you were gone? Of course you're not gone. And then when she shows up in the courtroom, I'm like, what the hell is she doing here? Yeah, it's just, oh God.
One of my favorite things too is like he doesn't say anything, but in 1897 when when she disappears, when she does this spell to get rid of the Phoenix, and she just disappears, and Quentin says to Barnabas about it, her, and he's like, he doesn't say anything, but the look on his face like, yeah, she'll be back. It's like I'm not saying she's gone. That woman's never gone.
No.
Like she'll be back.
Oh yeah.
It's like yeah, like that. Yeah, it's no big deal. But it's again. 1795, great arc. For those who haven't watched it, I'm gonna leave a link to the trailer that they aired. By the way, you can watch that if you have the Coffin box set. Yes, that trailer is included. Um, as you're watching along, they do air the trailer, which is cool. Um, I always get every time I go back and I watch and I get 1795. I say the trailer, I get like really excited, and then I remember what happens and I'm like, oh shit, because it's but it's great storytelling and it's really great. So, um, first of all, Susie, thank you so much for giving me your time and coming on tonight.
No, thank you for having me. I enjoy talking about Dark Shadows. I don't, I, this is the only place I can really talk about the show and get,
Now,
feedback.
have you seen all three movies?
I've seen two, and I have the third one on DVD.
Okay. Well, watch the third one, and then we'll do the movies next. I'll do the movies with you. I have to do.
Wow.
I have to do. I think I got another Dark Shadows podcast next week, which is exciting. But when you watch the third movie, we'll get together and we'll review the movies.
Yeah, let's do it.
Which will be really fun because
Yeah.
then we get to talk about House of Dark Shadows, where everybody became a vampire.
Oh yeah.
Well, pretty much, but except for
Yeah.
Roger Davis, that lucky guy. But goodness, um, there's a really cool deleted scene in House where David's hanging in a closet. It's crazy. If you, it's not in the movie, but I think it's a deleted scene.
Oh.
It's like I've seen pictures of it, and it's like, oh wow.
Oh. If you find if yeah, if you know like if there's like a picture YouTube video or something, send the link if you find it.
I think there. If I see the picture on Facebook again, I'll copy it and I'll send it to on Twitter. I'll tag everybody in it.
Oh,
Um,
great. Okay.
so now, usually when I tag, I do two tags because there's a lot of Dark Shadows folks on Twitter, so- which is great. The more the merrier. And yes, there are many Angeliques as there should be. But
Yeah.
so once again, thank you, Susie, so much for giving me your time. It was
Thank
fun.
you.
You have
Yes,
a
thank
great
you.
you have a great night.
You too. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.